Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Karem. With me to discuss the wonderful state of journalism. Let's see, world famous, best-selling author, former CNN White House correspondent, one of the leading independent podcast producers today on Substack and others, Jim Acosta, and colleagues. We were colleagues in the White House under Donald Trump and
Yeah,
Obama, I think. Jim, welcome back, man. Good buddy.
abs
Good to see you.
absolutely. Good to see you too. Good to see you too. And we just found out one of our old colleagues, David Jackson of USA Today,
Yeah.
passed away.
I did not know.
He passed away. Yeah, we just found that out this morning. So it's a small circle of folks who did it the right way when you and I were doing it,
Yeah.
and it just makes me so sad when one of our brethren leaves
Well,
us. But
one of the last things I remember him telling me was in the White House. I didn't know he had gone. He said, "But there's a long legacy of what we do, and it has to continue." And
yes,
I take that to heart, as I've taken to heart many of the things told me by a lot of my mentors in that room. Before we get to that, though, I did want to
yeah.
start out with Warner Brothers and Paramount and David Ellison, fan of the president, now taking over your old stomping ground, CNN.
Yeah,
He's the one who brought us Barry Weiss, of all people. I don't
I
even
know.
know where to. The consolidation of the media is frightening to me. You?
It really is, Brian. And I mean, I've been saying this in other places. I'll say it here. I think this merger is downright un-American. This is not the way we do things in this country. We've kind of had a tradition of more decentralized media in America over the last 50 years. And what's about to emerge, it looks like, because the shareholders at WBD have approved this merger, and so there's really not much that's stopping it now, is you have the potential for a propaganda giant to emerge in this country under normal circumstances and normal times. Would we be super happy about a merger like this? No, we would not. There would be a lot of concerns about the film and entertainment industry and so on. But these are not normal times, and the owners of Paramount, which is gobbling up WBD and CNN, they're not normal owners. These are the Ellisons, Larry and David Ellison. They are super Trumpy, super MAGA. And all you have to do is look at what they've done to CBS. You mentioned the hiring of Barry Weiss to run CBS News. And, the track record there speaks for itself. They tried to shelve a piece on 60 Minutes about CCOT, the notorious prison in El Salvador. They've installed an anchor of the CBS Evening News. So I've known for a long time. I don't hold anything against him personally, but when he's ending the CBS Evening News by saying, Marco Rubio, we salute you,
Yeah.
and when he's doing things like both sides in January 6th, it doesn't take a genius to figure out they're going to try to translate that kind of editorial decision making over to CNN, in addition to laying off probably hundreds or even thousands of journalists in both companies. And so this is not the house of Walter Cronkite. This is not the house of Ted Turner that's merging here. This is something that could become a propaganda giant that could rival or even exceed what Fox is doing. And so I'm really worried about it.
Well, that's a great way to put it in a nutshell. I mean, the house of Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was, one of my influences when I was growing up. He wrote me a really nice letter when I went to jail about, the First Amendment and the importance of standing up, and that we're a public service. But the public service part of it seems to be lost in the idea that profits reign. I think that's the reason why the Ellisons love Trump so much. Not so much his well, maybe some of his political stances, but mostly because they can make money through him. And
Yeah.
that's the frightening part of this. Fewer and fewer companies owning more and more of what we do, and as you pointed out, laying off journalists in the process. So twice the number of people on the planet is on the day that I was born, and a quarter of the number of journalists. That tells you exactly where we're going. To your point, it's a propaganda machine at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, look at CNN. I mean, CNN is probably the largest news organization in the world. They have bureaus all over the planet, and that's going to get transformed into a David Ellison, Barry Weiss right wing outlet. I mean, that's nuts. And, they're already probably saying that, listen, that's not going to happen, yada, yada, yada. the proof is going to be in the pudding. And if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you.
Yes, right.
Um,
That's what Bezos sold us when he bought the Washington Post before he turned it into a
exactly. That's
chopper.
exactly right. Look what Bezos has done to the Washington Post, has just destroyed
Yeah,
an institution that gave us Woodward and Bernstein and the Watergate coverage of the 1970s and in the Pentagon Papers and so on.
yeah,
And, I just think that, and on top of all of that, you can just look at the business underpinnings of the deal, Brian. Apparently, they're taking on tens of billions of dollars in debt to
yeah.
finance this. Much of it is going to be financed and backed up by authoritarian regimes in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia and so on. And it's sort of like, well, what the hell's going on here? Is that America? Is that the United States, where you have two major news organizations and TV companies that are being bankrolled by authoritarian countries? What kind of influence are they going to have over news gathering and editorial decision making? And so, Saudi Arabia, the same country that ordered the execution of Jamal Khashoggi,
Yeah.
those folks are going to have their fingers in the pie over at CNN and CBS News and this huge conglomerate. It's crazy, and
Well, it's not
yeah.
it's not just the debt, Jim. It's also the fact that they have government contracts with our government,
Well,
conflict
that's
of
true.
interest. So
That's right.
they're indebted to the foreign powers, and they're indebted to our own government, which they vow to report on. How can you be an independent, impartial observer if you are involved with foreign countries and our own government? It's that, to your point, I
That's
think
right.
what at that point what you have is nothing more than a propaganda minister.
Yeah. And you and I've traveled around the world. We've been on foreign trips with the president of the United States from both parties, and we've been to authoritarian countries where they have state media. These are not
Mhm.
places where you want to live, folks. You don't want to trade places and live in these countries.
No, yeah,
And
and unfortunately, it looks like that's where we're going.
yeah, I mean, and this is why should a news guy like myself be so opinionated? I get that there's some people who are like, how can you do that and so on. To me, this is just stating facts, and this is trying to hit the warning signal, hit the bat signal, and let folks know that our democracy is in serious trouble right now. And one of the hallmarks of a slide towards authoritarianism and autocracy, as you know, Brian, is taking control of an independent media, taking control of free media and turning it into a propaganda arm of the people who are in power and the oligarchs. And that ain't good. That's not
No.
what we want to have happen.
Well, and that segues nice into what's happening on Saturday. Speaking of
Yeah.
that's it's the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You and I have been to it many times. Donald Trump never has been, and in fact, in 2018, I think it was Michelle Wolf who came out and lambasted the president, skewered
Yeah.
him, and they didn't like what she had to say. And I remember Sarah Huckabee Sanders was there and didn't like it, and so
She
the
got
very
pissed. Yeah.
and then the next day, the president of WHCA, which I think we both were members of at that time, issued a statement saying it's supposed to be a happy occasion where we talk about good things. And obviously the speaker didn't do that. So kowtowing to Donald then. And then the
Yes.
following year, they didn't even have a comedian. We had a historian who bored us to death for about
Yeah.
15 or 20 minutes, and Donald still didn't show up. This time, he has vowed to show up. I have vowed not to because and you have too, I
I'm
believe,
not
because
going. Yeah.
I'm not going to go. I
Screw
don't even
that.
want to go.
Yep.
And he now is coming. And why do you think that is? I think it's because, as we spoke about at the beginning, the consolidation of media he has placed. And let me go over, and you know this, but for viewers, just briefly, he has taken over the assignment of the in-house pool. He
Yes.
has kept us from going into upper press. You and I remember many days when we would go up there and you could have inconsequential meetings with members of the establishment of the administration and make sources there and
Yeah.
set meetings up. And it was
Sure.
very, I say inconsequential, but it was informal,
Congenial. Yeah.
congenial,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
They get to know us, we get to know them. Not
Yep.
anymore. He doesn't
No.
show up in public much. When he does, it's usually sitting down. He doesn't do chopper talk like he did as often. He's been to the Brady briefing room only 3 times. He is controlling the narrative. So if he shows up to an event where, remind you that Barack Obama made fun of him in 2011, sparking his interest in politics. So
Yeah.
if he's going to show up in what he knows in the past has been an adversarial um, banquet, if he's doing that, it's because he thinks he can do it and control the narrative.
I think so. I think he wants to go in there and spike the football in everybody's faces and say, "Ha ha, I won."
Yeah.
And I've said this many times. I think to some extent he has won, at least temporarily. He's cracked the code on how to hurt the press in this country. By banning the Associated Press from the Oval Office and Air Force One, taking control of the briefing room. It's stocked with ringers now. Same with the Pentagon briefing room. Uh, and then there's the media conglomeration stuff that's taking place. The Ellisons not only controlling CNN and CBS, but TikTok as well. And just the other day, Brendan Carr was touting the fact that they've ousted all of these TV hosts and anchors from their jobs in network television, including myself. They were bragging about getting rid of Stephen Colbert and stuff like that. How is it normal that we live in a country where the government can control who our late night TV hosts are or
Yes.
have some influence over that? That's bananas. And so, but he's been able to do all of that. He's been able to go after his perceived enemies in this fashion. And I think he wants to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and spike the football and taunt everybody in there. And I think it's very important how folks respond to this. My personal opinion, don't go. The networks and the news organizations should say, well, if he's going to go in there and be a jackass, we'll donate our scholarship money, but we're not going to sit there and listen to this and take this abuse. But if they're determined to go and sit there for this, this rendition of the weave that he's probably going to do, he's probably going to talk about Hannibal Lecter and stolen elections and windmills and so on. But if he starts bashing the press, my sense of it is that members of these news organizations should not just sit there and take it. They should get up out of their seats and walk the hell out. You don't need to toast the free press with Donald Trump and Brendan Carr and Stephen Miller. You can go to the bar and do that.
Right.
You can go to the after parties and do that. You don't have to do it with him when he obviously he wants to obliterate the free press. He wants to obliterate the First Amendment in this country. And I don't know why these media companies are going along with this. And they're just going to sit there like potted plants and take
Money.
this shit when C-SPAN shows the cutaways and so on. You're going to have these anchors and these executives are they going to go, ha, 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 as Donald Trump, goes after the press in this fashion? It's not a good look. And it's probably too late at this point for a lot of folks to cancel. But I think it would have been a nice image for the public to see had Trump just gone in there and he was speaking to OAN and Fox and the other goofballs in the MAGA media and ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, New York Times, Washington. I don't think the New York Times goes, but the major news organizations in DC just don't go. Just have there be
DC.
empty tables.
Yeah.
That's right.
I agree with you. My key mentor when I first came into the White House was Sam Donaldson and Helen Thomas.
The
And
best.
Helen was always of the opinion that they work for us. And Helen, and I think of you
Right.
often when I think of Helen, because Helen, I remember Joe Lockhart, I remember Mike McCurry. They would give Helen donuts and coffee every morning when she walked in. She would sit upstairs and upper press in a chair and watch. And
Yeah.
I remember, if you and I ever professed to do what she did, we'd have been thrown out on our ass. But she would knock on the door,
Well, they wouldn't
demand
be
that
able to handle
they
Helen and
could.
Sam.
No, they
They
couldn't.
think we're bad.
Yes,
We're tapioca pudding
compared to
compared
them,
to
you're
Helen
right.
and Sam. Yeah.
And so, yeah, and for those who don't know, both you and I had to fight in court to keep our hard pass during the
Yeah,
first Trump administration, and we beat his ass in court. Now,
that's right.
Sam and I forget who else it was, but Sam and 250 other people have signed a letter to the White House Correspondents Association demanding that they take a firm stand against Donald Trump during the dinner. And while I support the sentiment. I don't know. I think it's horrible that you even had to pen such a letter that
I
we were,
agree.
and I don't know that that will do anything because after 2018, the WHCA acquiesced to Donald Trump because he didn't like Michelle Wolf, what she had to say about him. So
Yeah.
I doubt that they're going to have any courage. And by the way, and this is, and just my own opinion, I'll venture it from being in the WHCA for years. The board doesn't care about anything but themselves and their access.
It's
And I,
about protecting access these days,
yes,
and I think that that is tragic because with the public's idea and view of the White House Correspondents Association and the Washington Press Corps is that you're here in DC for more than just access. You're here
yeah,
to hold their feet to the fire. You're here to hold elected leaders accountable, and you're doing it as a public service. You know, you mentioned when we talked about Cronkite earlier, Cronkite would say it's the free press is not important for democracy. It is
it is
democracy.
democracy.
It is democracy. So if so the folks in the Correspondents Association, I mean, I don't want to paint with a broad brush because there are some good people there, as you and I both
Yes,
know.
I'll say
Um,
that with a caveat. Yes,
with the caveat, yes, absolutely. But but my concern is that the interests of these news organizations, the executives, the media executives who want the access, they're breathing down the necks of the representatives on the board to just
exactly.
roll over and just do whatever the Trump White House wants. We can't just do that. If you're kicked, this goes back to when you and I were talking about the Associated Press getting kicked out of the Oval Office and Air Force One last year. At
Yeah.
that point, there should have been a revolt in the briefing room. They should have said no. If you're not going to let the AP in, I'm sorry, you're not getting your pictures, you're not getting your stories. You can talk to OAN and the other goofballs, but you're not going to talk to us, and you're not going to get your
Remember when
pictures
we
from
did
us.
that for Fox during the Obama administration?
That's right.
Just because Obama wanted to keep them out of it, we stood by Fox. Where
That's
is
right.
anyone standing by us today?
Yeah, and I'll give Fox this. I mean, when my press pass got taken away, Fox stood with me and CNN, and that was a good thing.
Same.
And you too. But Fox, they should be doing that now. I mean, enough with this behind the scenes. Let's see if we can work it out behind the scenes. BS. It ain't working. Donald Trump is taking a flamethrower to the First Amendment and the free press in this country, and unless there is collective, combined action on the part of the press corps to get him to start seeing straight, this is not going to work. And the public is going to continue to lose faith and trust in what we do. All the time, Brian, all the time we get thrown in our face. Oh, these poll numbers that show that public confidence in the press, it's at an all-time low. It's in the doghouse. It's in the shitter and so on. People make that mistake of thinking that, oh, it's because of a liberal bias and so on.
Right.
No, part of the reason why people are pissed at us and don't like what we're doing is they see us kowtowing to a bunch of wannabe tyrants. And you want to improve our standing with the public, start showing some backbone.
Yeah, well, to your point there, I mean, every time Scott Bessent tells us that, they're great with energy prices, the economy is fantastic, where is the pushback? When you and I were standing in that room, that
Yeah,
would have been cause for concern. And someone, whether it be you, April Ryan, me, I'll even throw John Carl in there on
right.
occasion.
Yeah,
There were people that would stand up and go, wait a second. And then we would
that's
follow
right.
up with each other. So once the
Correct.
question started, if it wasn't answered, the next reporter down the line would do it. And
I know. I know. And
they don't do that at all
I've
today.
struggled with this, Brian, and I've thought about, well, should I go down there, go get a day pass, go into the briefing
Good
room,
luck. I'm
go
having
do my
trouble
thing?
getting the day
But
pass. Have you tried?
I'm sure they will laugh at me and say, "There's no way you're going to come in." But I will say to Caroline Levitt, or any of the people at the White House, if they're watching this, there's no way they're going to watch you and me go off on them. But if there's a headline out there, I would issue a challenge to the White House press secretary and their office and to Donald Trump to let me and Brian into the White House to come do our thing. If
Yeah.
you guys like to think that you're these big, macho dudes, macho man, or the YMCA, Village People, wherever that song they play when he does that goofy dance, if you're that macho, then you would let me and Brian in the building.
It
But if
wouldn't
you're,
wouldn't be
but
hard, would it?
it tells me that they're not so macho.
No, you've got a good point. I've been I've tried many times, had my hard pass taken from me after I went and shot a documentary. So I was out of the room,
Yeah,
and so that's part of their process. If you're not in for so many days, they track you, then they pull your hard pass. And then
Yeah.
trying to get a day pass has been I
Like
might
going to
as
the
well.
Politburo.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. However, if I work for Zero Point Media or Friends of Wally Cox Media
Yeah.
or
Tim
something,
Pool, Real America News.
yes, then I'd get in. But
Yeah.
I look at that as, and you and I were talking before we started about the, I feel a debt of gratitude to Sam Donaldson and Helen and those, and I often wonder if we let them down. Sam
Yeah.
and Helen were the first two people I met when I walked in that
Mm,
room. They taught me how to do it. I mean, my favorite interaction was, I mean, within the first minutes, Helen walked in and she said, "Listen, that first row in the Brady briefing room has, 100 to 200 years worth of 100. Well, she said 200 years worth of experience." And Sam said, "Yeah," and Helen has 190 of it. And
yeah.
so I knew I liked them because they had a sense of humor, but they were serious about what they did and they
Yeah.
took it seriously. And it was the reason why this show is called Just Ask the Question, is because what Helen told me. She goes, "Brian, it doesn't matter if they answer the question. It doesn't matter what the question is. It doesn't matter if they give a bad answer. Just ask the question. That way they cannot deny that it's been put on the public record." We have none of that
Yeah.
today. And I feel like
No.
somehow I've let down the people I admired the most because of what's
Well,
going on today.
I feel that way too, to some extent. Our generation of journalists, we're not really covering ourselves in glory these days. But you and I have fought the good fight, and like, what are we going to do? Wave a magic wand and force these guys to go in there and be tough? We can't.
I can't. Yeah.
And that's why this independent media movement is so important. I think the bigger it gets, the stronger it becomes, the more of a force it will be, and it will force the hand of future administrations to take what we do seriously and give us access and the ability to hold their feet to the fire. Unfortunately, right now we're in a position where, and I wrote about this in my Substack the other day, that
I love the piece,
the,
by the way. Thanks for
it's
writing
the
it.
White House capitulation dinner. And
Yeah.
the capitulation comes from these companies that have decided to bend the knee and basically say, well, let's just wait it out until he's gone. And then and hopefully things will go back to normal. Well, good luck with that. I hope
Yeah.
it works out. Maybe it will. Maybe you'll get lucky and it will work out. But look at all the damage that's being done in the process. And we have somehow, we've influenced future generations of Americans. These young kids have no concept of what things were like before Donald Trump arrived on the scene. And
Or
now we have,
independent journalism.
or independent journalism, we have generations of young people now who think this is all normal. And
Yeah.
so, I'm sorry. And why is it that big media is the latest to this party? Other institutions of American
Money.
society have been standing up to these guys. There are law firms that have been standing up to Trump, universities. In 2025, there was a lot of bending the knee in those corners. Now, some folks are starting to wake up to the reality that you have to stand up to this guy. That's just all there is to it,
But
and
Jim,
that's not happening in the media.
yes, yeah, and can I say, I that's what pisses me off the
Yeah,
most.
yeah,
You, me, there were several people in that first White House who did stand up to him, and
correct.
when we did, he lost, not us.
Yes, that's
And
right.
it's like, did you not see how to deal with this guy the first time? And
I
maybe
know.
that's just, I hope it's not hubris on my part, but I mean, after what we went through, and man, it was tough. You know it better than
Yeah,
most.
yeah.
And I'll tell you a quick story about, you and I hadn't met. So the very first few days of the Trump administration, and I remember one day I walked in and you were shooting a picture of your socks. Do you remember this? And
Yeah.
I go, there isn't a better fucking comment to be made
That was
about
when
this.
Sean Spicer wanted to he turned off the cameras in the briefing room. We were
Yes.
having briefings during the first administration where Sean Spicer said, well, this is, we don't like all these questions and stuff. So we're going to have audio only briefings.
Yeah.
And so as a protest, I took a picture of my socks and tweeted it out. And it's sort of like, in what
Best
world are we?
editorial comment on that
And then
administration.
at some point, our old bureau chief in DC, Sam Fison, over a sketch artist, and they did a sketch artist,
Yeah,
rendering of Sean. And and I think they may have offered it to Sean to be, try to make peace and so on, and he acted like a jerk about it.
I'm
Um,
surprised. Come on, no, no.
but yeah, I mean, the but at the end of the day, Brian, I think the truth prevails. And I think Trump, he's in the low 30s right now. He's down to Kool-Aid drinkers and next of kin, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And the American people are figuring this out. And he knows that a tidal wave of a voter revolt is on the horizon. He is going to try his best to stand in the way of that and to short circuit that by making a mess of our democracy and voting and elections and so on. He's going to try. I don't think he'll succeed, but he's going to try. And we're going to be going through another trial period, I think, over this next
Well, I think after
10
the
months or
midterm,
so.
yeah, I think after the midterm, if I've
Yeah.
said this about that, if I'm anticipating, and that's my buddy Sam right there, and that's, remember Ted Boutros, you and I were in
Yeah.
court, that
Ted, the famous
as
Ted.
in
Right.
talking with them, I agree with the sentiment I'm getting from some of them, and that is, I don't think you'll see anything till after the midterms. I urge everyone to vote in the midterms, no matter how difficult Trump tries to make it. You've got to do it. If you'll show up for an 8-hour protest on a No Kings rally and tell me that you don't have the time to vote, I really don't understand that sentiment. Get your butt
Yeah.
out and vote. But if at any point in time you see, and you do, you still get daily guidance? Are you on the
I don't know.
oh,
I do you get those? I haven't
yeah, I
even.
still get I
Yeah.
subscribe, still get the daily guidance. If
Yeah.
any day during the daily guidance, we get an amended guidance which says that the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader are coming to the Oval. That's the clue. That's the tipping
That's
point.
the
That's
day to
them.
come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to be, and I would watch them walking in with a crowbar and a handful of sedatives because they're going to have to pry the guy out of there. But they're going to be coming to tell him that they've whipped the votes and he can't beat impeachment. If both of them make that appearance, I think that's what's. I
Interesting.
know they'll have to talk about it
Well,
because
I think if he attempts to sabotage the upcoming midterms, that is immediately an impeachable offense. And when the Democrats take over in the new year, I think it seems to me they should probably immediately begin impeachment proceedings. If he attempts to overturn the midterm elections, or if he attempts to sabotage them by sending ICE and things like that, I think to me he's committing new election crimes. And that's it. I'm sorry, buddy, but three strikes
yeah,
and you're out. And to me,
with any luck, your mouth to God's ears. But
yeah, you know, people might hear that and say, "Oh, that's so far fetched. It's never going to happen." Never say never, And I think that if he attempts to do that to these midterms, that is disqualifying, among the many other things that he's done, but that may be the most disqualifiable since January 6th. And there have to be consequences. I don't, the Supreme Court can say, well, he's got limited immunity, and so on. And Trump may take that and say, well, I've got total immunity and I can't be impeached. I can't be
right.
removed. I can't do this. I can't do that. And at some point, the Constitution is going to have to, reemerge here. And and John Roberts is going to have to come back to planet Earth,
And
and
Congress.
understand who he's dealing with in the Oval Office right now. This is somebody who is totally out of control.
Well,
And if he, and it may get worse than that in
I
these
think
next
it
several
will.
months. Yeah.
Mary Trump will tell you there's no worst with Donald. There's only worse
There's no
every day.
worst. That's
And
right.
it just gets worse every day. So nothing would surprise me if Donald Trump came out and said he's going to rename it, the Aswan Dam, or or Boulder, Colorado, Trumpville, or Trump
Yeah.
Dam. I would not, that nothing would surprise me.
Nothing.
But
That's right.
I think that when you're talking about the impeachment, I think Congress has got to find their own stones too. They have
Yeah,
not,
absolutely. No
and
question.
I think that
I'm already
massive.
starting to hear rumblings of
Oh, but
inside the Republican, caucuses up
Jim,
on the Hill. They're starting to freak out, and
yes,
they know who to blame.
and I've heard from
Yeah.
dozens of them. Yeah, of course I know who to
Yeah.
blame, the guy they put in office. But I've heard from dozens of them who said if it were a secret ballot, Donald Trump would be impeached and convicted today. if it were a
Yeah.
secret ballot. So
Yeah.
that tells you the Republicans are very brave privately, but
Yeah.
publicly not so much. But
Yeah.
Massey, I think, is showing them that you can oppose Donald Trump and do better without him than with him. Thomas Massey in Kentucky.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's all that talk in the Strait of Hormuz that there's going to be a fertilizer shortage. Just come to DC. There's plenty of chicken shit here. Yeah,
Yes, chicken shit, bullshit, and horse shit.
and all of the
It's
above,
all brands, all varieties. It's
all
right
kinds
here,
of
and
fertilizer.
yeah, that's
Line up,
yep,
everybody.
line it up. Well, that's all right. So we go. This takes me back to the Washington, the WHCA dinner too. Here we are, a man who threatened genocide on Iran came out, compared himself to Jesus. Then his staff told him to say that it was a doctored photo, and he said, "I was a doctor." He couldn't even get that
Yeah.
one right, and he constantly insults us, calls us fake media. Why would you sit still for that? I mean, even the Church of the Waving Hands, there are plenty of them who don't support Donald anymore, and is
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, horrifying, and again, going back to what it is you and I do for a living is a public service.
Yeah.
When it's done right, like you said, we've traveled to see what it's like outside of the United States when you don't have the protection of a free press.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it looks like we're headed in that direction. Where
Yeah.
you talk about impeachable offenses, man, calling for genocide, starting a war.
Right.
And what's he going to get out of it? He's going to be right back. Look, he negotiated for 21 hours, left Islamabad saying he couldn't get the deal that he wanted. It took Barack Obama 20 months and 4 or 5 other countries to negotiate the deal that Donald Trump would love to have back in place today.
Right. Under Obama's deal, the Strait of Hormuz was open. And there wasn't a global energy crisis, and people weren't paying $4 or $5 a gallon because of a war of choice, and so on. And so, people are starting to figure this one out. And I think that Trump is as much as he calls us the enemy of the people, he's his own worst enemy,
Yeah, I agree.
and it's all in his mind. And it's all playing out on Truth Social. If anybody wants to see how things are going inside Donald Trump's head, all you have to do is look at his Truth Social account. It's one flew over the cuckoo's nest stuff, and threatening to wipe out a civilization. Talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson being low IQ. He did that
Yeah.
yesterday. Just really awful, crazy racist stuff. And to me, it's high time for, the padded truck to show up at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and start, politely saying it's time to go. And he's, this is not hyperbole. Something is terribly wrong with him.
Yes.
And I don't know, we're all going to look back years from now and say, why did it take so long for everybody to come to this conclusion? But
But didn't
he's
you notice it in the first administration? I know I did.
absolutely no question
Yes.
about it. Anybody who comes into the White House briefing room and says that you can inject disinfectant into your body or put a light up in your body because of COVID, I mean I remember that day vividly,
Yes,
and
I
just
do
thinking
too.
like this is nuts. But the attempt to overturn the election of 2020 will undoubtedly go down as one of the worst moments in American history, only to be exceeded by the decision to put him back in office by the American people, which was just a perfect storm of horrific events that made that possible. You talk to people who represent countries from around the world. I talk to folks in the diplomatic community all the time here in Washington. They pull me aside and they say, "What the hell is going on? Why is this happening? Why did you guys put him back in there?" And gone are the days where Americans can say, "Hey, I didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't. Don't blame me."
Yeah.
Folks around the world are saying, no, it's all of you. How
Yeah.
did this happen? What's wrong with your country? What's wrong with your system of government? How can this guy possibly get let back in? And this is going to be like a Rubik's Cube on steroids to figure out. We are on the dark side of the moon. And, I can't predict for anybody how this is all going to turn out because we don't know how far he's going to go to try to hold on to power this time. And for the oligarchs who are backing him, the people like the Ellisons and so on, they are determined to transform this country into a place where working class and middle class Americans just do not have the say that they used to. They want to rig the game so the elections always work out in their favor. And it is propped up by propaganda outlets that will only report what they want you to hear. That is not America, and it has to be stopped.
Well, and to that point,
Yeah.
the media has to get a set and do it right,
Yeah.
but you're not
Right.
gonna do it if the people who are trying to control it own it, and
Correct.
that started with Ronald Reagan, man, when he dismantled it, and every president since then has played some part in it, and
Yeah.
so we
But
are.
Reagan would never, I mean, I don't know. Do I know what Ronald Reagan would think? Maybe not, but I do not think Ronald Reagan would ever want to see what is taking place in this country right now. And
I
I
agree with that
yeah.
because he, at least in immigration, he was a far today you would call him far left, but he was like pathway to citizenship. He did believe in free speech. He believed in a smaller government. But Ronald Reagan also made Donald Trump possible because when he got elected, it was by the very same people who have worked for Project 2025 and
Yeah.
have led us down the primrose path. So it began with him when he took away the Fairness Doctrine, allowed multiple
That's
ownership
right.
of many
That's right.
media properties. So you have, when I got into the business, 80% of what you see, read, or hear was owned by a couple of dozen companies. Today, 95% of what you see, read, or hear is owned by 5 companies, soon
It's
to be
insane.
4. It's like the
Right.
big 4, auto manufacturers, the big 4 oil companies, and now the big 4 media. We don't
It's
need it.
time to break up big, it's time for,
Where's the
you know,
Teddy Roosevelt when you need
Teddy
one?
Roosevelt trust busting era of new progressivism, and it's going to, just like there's talk of breaking up big tech, there's got to be talk of breaking up big media too.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that we would cure many of the ills, and I would go to the WHCA if this occurred. I, I left them after the question that I asked that you referenced that one time about a peaceful transfer of power came on a day I did not have a seat. I was standing in the back of the room. I was asked by the WHCA president at the time if that seat were open to take it so that new media or the far right wouldn't take it. So I took the seat. I raised
Yeah.
my hand. You and I both know that while he bitched about us, he did like to fight with us in the first administration. He would look for you or for me in a crowd and you fake media go, and because he liked the fight. But
Yeah.
and so on that day,
But
he
I think
asked.
he's beyond that point now.
I
He's
agree with
diminished,
that.
and he doesn't want to be hassled by it. And
He can't
Ronald
handle it.
Reagan, I was talking to Sam Donaldson about this the other day. Ronald Reagan and his team, you can say what you want about Reagan, and I totally agree with you. He planted some of the seeds for what we're dealing with today, no question about it. But he didn't hate the press. He didn't hate
No,
the media. He understood that this is according to Sam Donaldson. I was a little kid back then, but Sam said that they understood that you had a job to do, and Reagan behind closed doors, privately, could be very gracious and magnanimous with the press.
Ronald Reagan
And
saved Sam Donaldson's job.
yeah,
And there are 2 stories that I was
yeah,
here
I
for.
remember. I've heard it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah,
here for one of them when Reagan walked out. Back in the day, you know how packed the departure is these days. That
yeah,
day, it was me, Sam, and 3 or 4 other people. I was fresh off the choo-choo, so I'm following Sam around and Helen around, and Sam went out for the departure. You know how the presidents like to pretend like they can't hear you.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
so Reagan raised his hand as, like this to his ear as he's walking to the helicopter. And Sam said, and it was after Reagan had something done to his foot. He said, "Mr. President, I see that you're limping. Does that mean you're a lame duck, sir?" And, and the president turned and goes, "I heard that, Sam." And then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
took his
He got in trouble
question.
for that.
But Sam and him had a repartee, and when his own boss threatened to fire Sam at ABC because Sam popped up to ask Reagan a question, and everybody was going off, and Reagan said, "That's just Sam being Sam. Give him a break." He did like
Exactly.
the press. He
He
appreciated, and
did.
that when my story of meeting him was that first day with Helen and Sam. Helen went up and was beating on Larry Speak's office and said, Larry, get out here and talk to us, you son of a bitch. And then if you and I had done that, we'd have been, ushered out of the White House.
Totally. Yeah.
But Helen got away with it. The Secret Service came by and said, the president is coming by to speak to Larry. You all have to leave. Man,
Yeah.
I'm 24 years old. I was nervous. Sam and Helen turning left. I turned and fell and went face, the up there in the upper palace that
Yeah.
right there. And I hit right in front of the door and I'm on my knees. There's a hand on my shoulder. I turned around and thought it was Secret Service. It was Ronald Reagan. And he said, well, young fella, you don't have to bow in front of me. And
There
that
you
was,
go.
I mean, could you imagine Trump doing that today? And Helen ran the WHCA to the point earlier about the WHCA. After I asked that question of Trump, the WHCA who asked me to take that seat asked me not to be back in the WHCA because I had gotten the question in and it was contentious. Can you imagine Helen or Sam or Dan Rather or any of the people that we grew up watching
Yeah.
going through
I
that?
know.
Can
No,
you?
I know. And that's why, it's up to all of us to, turn this institution over to the next generation in the same way it was handed to us. And I feel like this generation is letting down the Rathers and the Donaldsons and the Thomases and all the great, legendary print reporters who came from newspapers, folks like David Jackson, USA Today just passed away. Let's do it for them. And we can't hand over the reins of this institution to the next generation of journalists and say it's okay for the president of the United States to run us all into the ground. It's just we're going to have to find our spines. We're going to have to find
Well,
our spines.
it's hard to when you could lose your job if you do. I
Yeah.
understand that, but
No, it's on
but
it's on these media executives.
and they won't
Uh,
do it.
It's on these media, the individual journalists, folks can go off on them and so on, but they have bosses, and those bosses are obviously making the lives of the journalists on the front lines kind of a living hell by
Yeah.
not backing them up. And that has to change. That has to change.
Yeah, I agree with I'll go back to my buddy Ben Bagdickian, who said, never forget the obligation is to the people. It's not at heart
That's
to
right.
those who pay you or your editor or your sources or to your
Yeah.
friends or to the advancement of your career. It's to the public. And we used to
Yeah.
remember that. And
Yeah.
we don't. But look, man, I could do this all day. I appreciate you being here.
You bet, Brian.
Let me ask you a quick question. Can you pick one moment during the first Trump administration that stands out in your mind as the single worst, greatest, memorable event covering him?
Oh, gosh. To me, it's that day you and I were there in the East Room when he came after me and referred to me as the enemy of the people. And that night, I had my press pass taken away. We had to go to court to get it back. There were good days, there were bad days covering the White House during that first administration. But I won't forget that time. It'll
I won't.
always be with me. And what will always be with me is that I had a lot of support from folks like you and others in the press corps. And we need to have that spirit come back, because what we hold dear in our First Amendment free press, that is under attack right now. Make no mistake. And we shouldn't be breaking bread with these folks who are doing damage to this institution. We should be standing up to them and telling them this has got to stop.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I will double down and issue the challenge to the White House. Come on, Jim and I, let us in for a briefing.
There
Have
you
the
go.
president talk to us. We'll break bread. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Mazel tov.
Something like that.
Yeah, bring us in.
Exactly.
It would be fun. But anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Brian. Good to talk to you, man. Take
Yep.
care.
This is Just Ask the Question. I am your host, Brian Karem. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.